Let me ask you a question. When did you become a man? See, I could ask that question to 100 different guys, and I might get 100 different answers. That's a problem. My name is Jeddy Azuma. I'm the founder of the Rising Man movement, and I'm a Rites of Passage facilitator and guide. And today I'm going to talk about Rites of Passage and why we need them in modern society for men. So let's first talk about what we're already doing in society. We are kind of initiating boys into manhood, but it's incomplete. There's no ceremony around it. There's no ritual. There's no context for what it means to go from boyhood into manhood. And that's a problem. You see a lot of boys and men out there, they think that they become men when they have sex for the first time, or when they get drunk for the first time, or the first time that they move out of the house and go to a party. And there's a lot of these societal trends towards what it means to be a man that are ineffective, that don't actually prepare boys to step into the responsibility of manhood and adulthood. Now, for generations and generations, every single one of us, no matter where your ancestry comes from in the world, you had relatives and ancestors who had land-based rituals and ceremonies to acknowledge when a boy became a man. There's all different kinds of ways that cultures and traditions do this. Even current cultures, there's still people who are practicing these ways. But the problem is that in modern society, we don't have them. Instead, we have gang initiations. We have fraternity initiations and hazing and a lot of behaviors and practices that go along with the transition from boyhood to manhood that aren't actually preparing boys to be men. So back to that question, when did you become a man? What is it that you identify? What is that moment that you took the step, you marked a line in the sand and you said, boy, man? When did that happen? Did that ever happen for you? Have you ever made that conscious choice and decision? Because if you haven't, then there's probably a reason why you struggle to show up as the man that you want to be. Look no further than our political climate. We have tons of men leading the free world who are actually behaving a lot like boys. Immature, self-referenced, thinking only about themselves, egoic, caring about their image and what's in it for me versus what's in it for we. See, this is what men do. We think about the village, we think about community, we think about our families and the future. We're not able to do that if we haven't clearly marked that line from boyhood to manhood. So what can we do about it? What can you do about it? How can you create that experience for yourself? Well, there's many different ways to initiate a rite of passage, but every single one of them requires a commitment to cleanse and release and let go of an identity, everything that you've been up to this point in time, and then step across that threshold and become and embrace a new part of yourself. There's an element of death and rebirth that goes along with every rite of passage. Now, sometimes a rite of passage is going out into an unknown terrain and territory by yourself for a period of time. Sometimes a rite of passage can also be going from not being a father to the birth of your first child and you become a dad. So how can we do this better? How can we better prepare our boys to be men? How can you better prepare yourself to be the man you want to be for your family, for your community, for the planet? Well, one of these ways is to engage in the process of a rite of passage, to mark that threshold for yourself. Severance phase of a rite of passage is when you identify all the things that you want to leave behind. What is that skin that you need to shed? What are those ways of being, the identity, the behaviors that you've had up till this point in your life that you get to let go of? Sometimes letting go of a name, sometimes letting go of a persona. Maybe you've always been a jokester and you need to let go of that so you can graduate into something new. And then you got to declare that threshold, that line in the sand like I mentioned before, and be willing to step across it by putting yourself through some sort of challenge, some sort of crucible that feeds you the wisdom you need on the other side of incorporation, when you're incorporating that lifestyle, when you're becoming that person and living it and breathing it every single day of your life. You see, rites of passage is about death and the letting go of something, and rebirth, beginning a new cycle, something completely and entirely new. And the way that we do this better is by creating community around this, by initiating our men in a traditional way that leads us back to something that we can pass on to the next generation, by creating a legacy of the way that we initiate ourselves and mark those really powerful and important transitions in our lives. But it takes community. It takes a village. It takes a group of guys getting together and saying, this is how we do this now. And a community saying, this is what we want from our men, and supporting that for boys as they go on their journey to becoming men. So, Rites of passage, something that we need in our modern society. We need the leaders of the future to have that context for leading that is connected to what's in it for we. What's gonna make for a more promising future for our kids, for the coming generations. So, if something spoke to you in this video and really resonated with you, make sure you hit that like button. And if you want to learn more about Rites of Passage and Compass, which is the rising man's way of initiating men into our community, then check it out in the links in the description below. And we'll see you out there.